Hey, Plain Talk listeners, have something to say? Call or text Plain Talk with your questions, comments, or headlines you want us to cover.
Just dial 701-587-3141. Leave us your message or shoot us a text with your name and location, and you could be featured on an upcoming show.
Hi, my name is Ashley, and I am in Jamestown.
Hey, Rob and Chad. My name is Tony. I live in Grand Forks.
That's 701-587-3141.
Call us, text us, vent, praise.
We want you in the conversation. Thanks for being part of the show.
Now let's get back to today's episode.
Welcome back to Plain Talk, and just finished up with Drew Wrigley. Chad, I really think I think we just need some less myopia in this, and maybe that goes for both sides. I am really tired of having a fight over statistics. Like I think we need a shared set of numbers that, like, okay, we all agree these numbers are good. This is what it is. And now we can have the debate. Maybe that's Pollyannish of me to think that could happen, but that's been probably the most frustrating thing. I realize I may never, when it comes to philosophy about incarceration, there are going to be some deep philosophical things that someone like me is never going to agree with the Attorney General on. And that is what it is. That's democracy. But I worry about, we got to have a shared set of, and that's why I was so frustrated about the report taking so long to get out. He's wrong. That report is important. It should have been in the hands of the public. It should have been in the hands of the legislature during the interim, so that they can have these important debates, because they're having debates and shaping policy and proposals that we're going to be debating in the next legislative session. That's been happening over the last however many months since the 2025 session. They should have had the crime report during that. They didn't, and I thought that was unacceptable.
Yeah, and I didn't think the explanation was particularly made me feel any better. Just sort of, we didn't get to it, and nobody's asked for it in the past. Well, nobody's asked for it in the past because you put it out in a timely manner.
Well, because everybody knew it usually comes out in spring or summer, and then you have it. It's posted on the website. Nobody really has to ask about it, but I know a lot of people refer to it. The media always, every time it comes out, there's media stories about that certainly inform the public about it. And also, by the way, when he's telling me, you don't change anything, the numbers are what they are. It's a formula. The data it's a mathematical report. Okay.
Yep.
Well, then why not just publish it?
Yeah. So why did it wait until, and also New Year's Eve? I mean, you can't with a straight face say that there wasn't an effort to somewhat cover up this stuff when you hold on to it for months and months and months and then release it on New Year's Eve at a press conference. I mean, it's out now. It's good. I think his point about 1 year's data does not undo, the previous. That's a good point. Like we're grown-ups. We can have this conversation.
100% fair.
But what causes the problems when there is an appearance that it's being, cover-up's too strong, but not being released, it makes it seem like there's something sketchy going on.
Yeah, downplayed maybe is a more fair way to describe it.
Right.
And so that was very, very frustrating. I mean, obviously, I understand that the Attorney General has some deep-seated criticisms of the Department of Corrections, or at least the current leadership at the Department of Corrections, and that is what it is. And again, that's politics, that's democracy. I don't really have a problem with any of that. The people of North Dakota chose the Attorney General. The people of North Dakota elected Governor Armstrong, who of course appoints the head of the DOCR. I mean, that is what it is. We're going to have some policy disagreements. We have got to get to a share. I don't want to spend another legislative session having dueling committee meetings where people are coming up and throwing tomatoes at one another over the numbers, because we're not debating the policy. We're still debating the numbers. If we go through that in another legislative session, a pox on all their houses. We got to do better than that.
I mean, the reality is it's okay to have a disagreement about policy, right? Yeah. That's okay. That's encouraged. But we have to have a shared set of facts,
right,
in order to make the best decisions moving
and we can even
forward.
disagree about which facts are more important than others. I mean, that's fine. You and I can look at the same set of facts and say, oh, I think this is really important, and you don't think it's so important, but it's all got to be out there.
Yeah. And again, I think your point, though, that this isn't his data, this isn't law enforcement's data, this is all of our data. And so to just not put it out just 'cause You
I
didn't get
I
around to it. I don't like that.
I know that the law enforcement community has a pretty good handle on what's happening with crime in the state of North Dakota.
They
Of course they
should.
do. They're down in the trenches. They're where the
Yeah,
rubber meets the road. I understand that. It's the public, right? It's
yeah,
the rest of us who only have we need our perceptions of crime in North Dakota to be informed and informed consistently with good data. That's what
yeah,
we need.
yeah.
Um
So, but
Speaking of
he's
which,
committed. He's committed now that it's going to come out in July. I still hope the legislature passes a bill that says it has to be out by that time.
let's set a deadline. Let's just set
Yeah.
a deadline. It has to be out. It's a routine report. They do it every year. Let's set a deadline. I am interested, about the other delays in his office. Does he need more resources? I mean, what? Because the open records complaints delay worries me as well. Especially, I mean, it's not if the situation is that a local government can violate an open meetings law or violate a records law, and then the process takes 3 years for a member of the public or a member of the news media to get some sort of satisfaction on that, then the meetings and the records aren't really open.
And again, we're not suggesting that they're not working hard. I mean, that
Right.
him saying his Jeep's in the parking lot. Okay, no, like that
Sure.
doesn't matter. But if you need more resources to do these core functions of the office, let's
Right.
get more resources.
And I think it might be fair. Like, are the number of requests, are the number of opinion
Right.
requests going up? I've requested that data. I'm interested in seeing it like over the last 10 or 15 years. Are they up? Are they down? I suspect they're probably up. A lot more people are using the open records laws these days. I
Yep.
think that's probably a function of, I mean, probably I help people with, people email me questions about open records and open meeting laws all the time. And I am happy to help people understand how they work and how to use them. It's not my place to offer an opinion, but I help people navigate those laws. I know more people are using them. So if that's it, then maybe we need some more resources. Maybe we need to tweak the process. I don't know.
It sounds to
But
me like we should charge you more taxes since you're bogging down the AG's office with this voluntary
I don't
service.
file that these days. I don't have to file that many complaints. I usually get what I want. My reputation tends to precede me sometimes. So,
Yeah, this
uh,
guy's going to write about the fact that we don't respond to him if he doesn't.
right.
Yeah,
I don't have a lot of patience for people who dick me around
yeah,
on open records requests. So, yeah, speaking of which, in the criminal justice world, I had a story about the
yeah.
F5 project, and I want to preface this by saying I love the F5 project. I think it is necessary work. I think it is unpopular work a lot of times, at least with some people, because they perceive it as you're helping people who have legitimately done. I think even the F5 project was done. Some of these people legitimately done some pretty awful things, but it's the F5 project is grounded in the reality that these we're letting these people out, right? And by letting them out, we're saying they've paid their debt to society. So how do we help them transition away from their incarceration, away from the demons that may have contributed to the reason why they're incarcerated in the first place, and turn them into tax-paying, law-abiding, prosperous citizens, or as close to those things as we can. Um, I think it's important, but and I will say I was tipped off because I think a lot of people were like, well, who, is F5 project enemy that lets you know about the report. It was just a random member of I correspond with a lot of my readership, and it was somebody who was interested in the F5 project, had recently gotten a grant through Cass County, through the Breaking the Cycle. They got a couple $100,000, I think. And they just looked the group up and read their Form 990, which is a IRS filing that most nonprofits have to do every year, and it discloses things like revenue and spending, and in that disclosure were personal loans taken by Adam Martin and one of the other top he's the founder of the F5 project, and then one of the other top executives there, Scott College, totaling nearly $70,000 between the two of them. um and I got to tell you, Scott, Chad, I have never seen that before or ever heard of that, a nonprofit giving zero interest loans out to people who work for the nonprofit, who run the nonprofit.
Yeah. So first of all, I, like you, really appreciate the work that F5 does. I think they often go into a lot of spaces that nobody else is willing to go into.
Like housing for registered sex offenders.
Right. And,
I
and
mean, talk
again,
about an emotionally fraught politically unpopular thing, but yet nonetheless needs to be done. They got to live somewhere.
You got to provide housing. You don't want sex offenders running around on the streets. I mean, right? I mean, so there's the balance. With that being said, it's a weird thing. When I looked at that, the 990 that you put up, it's a strange thing. And then I didn't think Adam's explanation was particularly good when he said, just sort of borrowed 1,000 here and 1,000 here and 10,000 for a credit card debt and didn't work through the board. I mean, I've worked for nonprofits. I've been on nonprofit boards. I've never seen something like this. And so, what I hope happens here is I hope that Adam, pays off the loan. They don't do this anymore, and that F5 can move forward as an organization. Because again, filling a space that needs to be filled.
Now, per my reporting, Mr. College has paid off his loan, is what Adam Martin told me. Adam was now as of the 2024 filing, they both still had balances. Adam said that since then, Scott College has paid off the loan. Martin says he is in the process. I think he said he had about 15,000 left to pay off. What really concerns me, and by the way, we're recording this on Wednesday, January 7th. As I understand it, the last comment from Adam Martin to me was that his board was going to be reviewing this. They were going to have outside counsel looking at this. They were going to have more to say in the coming days. So maybe by the time you're listening to this, F5 will have come out and said something. I will say that one thing that continues to bother me is that, Adam characterized getting the loans in dribs and drabs, 1,000 here, 1,000 there. I think one was like a big $10,000 one. But none of it was disclosed until 2024. I went back through their past filings all the way back to the first one they did in 2017. And there was never, this is disclosed on what's called the Schedule L from the IRS. There was never another Schedule L filed. There was never any disclosure of these loans previously. And that really worries me that the loans were going on. They weren't being documented. Apparently, there were no loan agreements even, like saying you're going to pay it back over X amount of time. There was no interest being charged, and there was no board approval. That is deeply troubling for me, not least because this is an organization that I think, since 2017 has taken in, 13 or $14 million in taxpayer dollars. That is not how you treat taxpayer dollars. That is not how you treat foundation dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. I would also say, I mean, F5 got really big really fast, right? I mean, they came into a space where there's a need for people to be in this space and they got really big really fast. And I assume there's some significant growing pains. Again, unless I know any different, I hope that, again, they pay off these loans, move forward and continue to do the great work to help people on the streets. But I'm with you. It's concerning. And I just hope that it gets fixed.
I would like to see it get fixed, and I would like to see F5 get back to the, again, tremendous work that they are doing. Other thing we want to talk about, so we're going to have a special legislative session later this month.
Yeah, that I thought was going to be a little boring, but maybe
I
not.
thought it was going to be a little boring because the session was caused because the state got a bunch of rural health dollars through a federal program, and we're essentially getting our first tranche. It's a whole lot of money, millions and millions of dollars. And so the state of North Dakota basically can't spend those dollars unless the legislature appropriates them. That's the whole checks and balances thing. So the legislators got to come to Bismarck, go through the rigmarole of basically, essentially, I don't mean this pejoratively, but essentially rubber stamping, the plan for spending this. I mean, there's really not going to be, I think, a ton of debate about that. But I caught wind that Representative Nathy, and we've talked about the ballot measure, the proposed constitutional amendment to create universal school meals, because it's not just lunches, it's lunches and breakfasts, that Representative Mike Nathy may be introducing similar, if not nearly exactly the same bill in the legislature later this month. And that's a very interesting development. If indeed, and by the way, Representative Nathy confirmed that he is working on it. We don't know 100% if it's going to be introduced. And obviously we don't know 100% if it'll pass or what it'll look like when it passes, if it does. But kind of an interesting development in that debate over school meals.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating that some legislators who've not historically necessarily supported this now, I mean, are being pragmatic and deserve some credit for being pragmatic, that are now looking at, hey, let's pass this thing, keep it in century code rather than the Constitution. I think you and I both agree that when this thing's on the ballot, it's going to pass. I think most legislators recognize that as well. And so be pragmatic, put it in century code, which allows a little more flexibility for legislators. That would essentially, from my perspective, end the constitutional measure. And I think the folks that are behind the constitutional measure should be celebrating this is a victory, because the goal here is not, the goal is to save folks money and to feed kids. And the process of how that gets done, I don't care who gets credit for it. I don't care if this is the right policy. Let's be celebrating. Again, I wish they would have done it 2 sessions ago, but here we are. And if it took the pressure of a constitutional measure to get it done, let's celebrate the win.
I think the pressure of a constitutional measure is probably the driving factor here. I mean, if I was sitting in the legislature and I was tasked with making this decision about a bill before me in this context, knowing that there's going to be a constitutional amendment on the ballot, I would say, let's get this done. I mean, whatever objections you have to the cost, it's a sunk cost at this point, because if you
Gonna
don't
pass.
spend the money, the voters are going to spend the money at the ballot box. That is
Right.
the political reality of this.
Well, and
And
I would also say, if you're concerned about affordability is the buzzword around the country right now in terms of politics. But if you're worried about affordability for working families, I mean, a family of 4, this is about $3,000 that they get to keep in their pocket, right? It's twice as much as the property tax credit that there was just a big lineup of people having a press conference about. And it will go to some people who are renters who aren't seeing the benefit of the property tax credit. And and I will just say, the property tax credit, it also isn't means tested. There's going to be people who say, oh, we shouldn't pay for meals for rich families or whatever. Well, a lot of our programs, public schools, aren't means tested. Like you and I've talked a lot about, just pass the whole thing. Let's move past this and put a little money in folks' pockets,
yeah.
um, to help pay for their increasing health insurance costs and all those other things.
And also, I would point out, while means testing is appropriate in some instances, it's also red tape. It's
It's
also
bureaucratic.
bureaucracy. And so I mean, when people say, well, we don't want to make, I'm not interested in spending the sort of tax dollars and resources it takes to discern whether or not some kids' parents are rich enough or poor enough for us to pay for their meals.
Right.
Again, they're required to go to public school. While they're there, we don't charge the user fee for the projectors or the textbooks or whatever. While they're there, we can feed them a meal during the day, feed them breakfast, feed them lunch, and just get it done. Um, so that's where I would like to be at.
And Rob,
I'm
let's talk about
interested.
the politics of this. If you're
Right.
the majority party, vote for this, get it behind you, so it's not a campaign issue come next year or this
Well,
year, I suppose.
also look at what you could campaign on. You could campaign on, hey, families who own their home and have kids in school are not only going to get a $1,600 tax credit, but are also going to save,
Right.
612. I mean, depending on how many kids you have in school, save hundreds of thousands of dollars every year in a time where inflation has been tough. The economy has been pretty rough, depending on which part of it you're working in. Um, that's a pretty good message to a lot of working families, and homeowners and people who are invested in this state, who have put down roots in this state by having children and buying a home.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot to take care of them. I think it's a good thing. I think politically it's the right move. And hey, if you do it, spike the football. Now, let me ask you this question, Chad. How likely is it, do you think? I mean, it's one thing for Representative Nathy to put the bill
Right.
in. How
Yeah.
likely is it to pass? Or or
So
or at least pass in the form that I think
yeah.
the backers of the amendment are going to be satisfied with?
So I think if they're trying to accomplish the goal of putting this in century code and not the Constitution, they better be very careful, meaning the legislature, to not play with it. And I know that the legislature likes to play with language and likes to tweak things and whatever. But if you start looking at a complicated means test or something like that, there's going to be a constitutional measure and it's going to pass, right? And so I think the things that I'm looking at are, will it get through delayed bills? I mean, that's the first
That's the
obstacle.
first hurdle, because
Yep.
this is a special session, so
Yep.
it's not like a regular session where they can just drop a bill.
I think if it gets through delayed bills, how much does NAFI and House leadership sort of push this? And then where's the governor's office on this? I think the governor understands exactly what we're talking about here. So I think it's likely to pass, but I also think that it's a complicated thing for Republican leaders to get their rank and file to understand and appreciate the strategy behind this, right? And so I think it passes.
Well, I have a feeling. To me, it's not so much. I think they're going to pass something. I think the question mark for me is what does that something look like? Is it close enough to what the proposals are doing? Um, and yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting thing, and it's going to be interesting to watch what the governor does. Does he get behind it? I mean, does he send his staff in to sort of lobby it and whip the votes and count? I don't know. Haven't talked to him
A-
about it.
And we know Nathy is behind this, but are there Senate champions? I mean, there's a lot of lifting to be done here. I would just say the strategy behind this for the majority party is very, very
I'm
smart.
trying to think of how the votes went on the previous meal bills that were in the where was the big was it the Senate or the House or both? I'm
So
trying to
I think they
remember
were
now.
both introduced in the House. And so I'm not sure if we've seen a vote in the Senate. I'd have to dig back through that.
Yeah.
You know what it's like once a session is done, it's just like you just forget about everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to have like 20 different bill numbers memorized, and now it's like
Yeah.
there's that one bill, that one session. I don't know.
All right. Well, we're going to put a pin in it there. Thank you so much for listening. It's going to be an interesting special session coming up. Remember, if you want to participate in Plain Talk, you can certainly give us a call, shoot us a text. 701-587-3141 is that number. You can also find us at plaintalknd.com. If you want to look, we got kind of a clearinghouse for where all our content goes. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. All great stuff. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk again.